when you talk about censoring information, you're basically doing the same thing that 1939 German people were doing. I mean, for Christ's sakes, you're doing the exact same thing.
Whenever we're talking about disinformation, or we're talking about masking, or we're talking about vaccines, or we're talking about COVID, somebody always has to bring up Nazi Germany. Why? Why? We don't need to bring up Hitler for everything, guys.
Anthony Fauci spread mass misinformation.
And that wasn't really misinformation. That was developing information, right? Like, as more information came.
Like Fauci, but name one.
Huh?
Yeah. No, I'm still
gonna
say what I was saying before.
Yeah. What did Fauci lie about?
He said mask work. No,
so you think that masks don't work?
No.
Famously, why surgeons don't use them.
Wait. We got it. Over 100 streamers, 100, a lot more than anybody thought, has been banned off of Twitch for spreading misinformation. A lot of these accounts included QAnon accounts, other things like that. And so my question to the room is, should Twitch be doing these misinformation bans? Do you support the new Twitch's new misinformation policy that targets accounts that spread misinformation, harmful misinformation, etc.? I'm going to start with Aircraft Sparky in the top left-hand corner.
No, I do not support it because no political channel would ever exist on Twitch. Everyone distributes misinformation. Look, when it comes down to it, remember when lab leak theory was, some type of weird conspiracy? Now it's pretty much the accepted truth of what happened. What is considered misinformation today is not going to be misinformation a month, 2 months, 3 months from now. Things change as more evidence and everything else comes out. So look, there are some conspiracy theories. You should actually be smart enough, intelligent enough to hear what people are saying, try to put two and two together, see if it actually equals to something that you can agree with, and go that route. If you take all your ideas from a streamer, you're dumb.
Okay, now I'm going to throw it over to Fabian.
Yeah, so I agree with everything Aircraft Sparky said, but I want to go a little deeper into this because what I've seen appears to be another example of individuals under large corporations getting themselves invested in trusted news initiative and state control power and takeover of social media as a means of censorship of the ideas and narrative of the American public at large. I have a lot of information because I looked into the financials of Global Disinformation Index and where their money comes from. And, it's very obvious that they're extremely left-wing biased. Are the sources that they're using as a means of combating harmful disinformation. And I also think it's very interesting what we're choosing to focus on. The last section about like going after, forest fires and natural disasters and information about like the wrong areas and stuff like that. It's perfectly fine for temporary bans, right? Because you could actually lead to people dying. But when your policy is crafted around, quote, civic misinformation, undermining of political process, and COVID-19, it's very obvious that this is a political move to try and keep certain opinions, certain ideas that are anti-state and against the narrative that these large corporations in the state want, and that they're bringing in partners pretending to be non-biased when what they're really doing is, what any company would do if it got $600 million from the CIA for your personal information.
Okay, I'm now going to throw it over to Sprouticus.
All right, so my position is going to maintain the same. My position has always been is that I think everyone should have a voice. I think that truth is going to talk the loudest. I think that you're not being forced to listen to certain people. Twitch is not mandating you to listen to certain people. I think everyone should be able to have a voice, and I think that any conspiracy theories that can be easily disproved with truth, and you should fight it head on instead of telling them they don't have a voice and kicking them off the platform, because if you fight it head on, you have a much higher rate of actually convincing people that that's not true, rather than kicking them off the platform, because then it makes the conspiracy theory all the better, right? Twitch doesn't want me to hear about it. It must be true. The government doesn't want me to hear about it. It must be true. The best way to fight this is actually to fight it head on and to fight it with truth rather than kick them off the platform.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Loner.
Generally against pretty much any kind of deplatforming. I think there have always been like historical exceptions. I think it was probably right during like the Second World War to ban Nazi propaganda in countries that were fighting the Nazis. I think when it comes to Twitch, I mean, people have the right to a voice. Doesn't mean they have the right to a megaphone. If you're going to put like porn and like violence threats and all that on Twitch, then yeah, they should ban you. When it comes to disinformation, on the other hand, I don't know, because everyone's doing it. I think maybe, I don't know exactly where I stand on the fact that people are putting out like very deliberate and very like propagandistic disinformation over a war. I don't know how, like, if like the harm of that could be demonstrated, and especially like the behavior of people like Infrared and like Jackson Hinkle at the moment talking about Russian sensing DNA bioweapons. Maybe I could be pushed on that, but at the moment I'm pretty anti-deplatforming. So,
Mythic.
Yeah, I think that broadly, I think these things have a lot of utility, especially on Twitch. You could argue that the information that is applied underneath Facebook posts or on Twitter, the little citation at the bottom saying like, for more information, click this link or whatever, that they also did on YouTube, that had some limited utility. But the people who are amenable, the people who are receptive to the type of conspiracies are generally low information people who aren't, number one, don't have the context for these things, or aren't able to parse academic responses. So they're very unusually influenced by people and will often parrot the talking points. In that sense, if you're interested in actually curbing harmful theories about vaccine denialism, electoral fraud that sort of precipitated the January 6th riots or whatever, the insurrection, those things can generally, you can put a big damper on them by removing content like this from Twitch, if that is your goal.
Okay, I'm going to throw it to Parker.
I think they should obviously get rid of like any violent type of content, but specifically I would be against misinformation bans for like the vaccine and other things like that. I think the best way to dismantle those types of ideas and those types of conspiracy theories is to give the counter arguments and give the logic based arguments, and I think people will parse out based upon that. Because I do think that if we just ban it and those people are still going to, get those arguments, and that kind of emboldens those arguments and those conspiracy theories, kind of like how Sprout said. So I definitely would be against the deplatforming. It's also like a very broad definition of misinformation, and it's really just up to the interpretation of Twitch or any of these social media platforms to determine what they think is misinformation.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Stardust.
So I think that as far as misinformation goes, I guess I'm still kind of trying to understand where the line is. I do think that if it is speech that can be tied to like an impact, like a call for violence, something like that, definitely deplatforming is valid. I think that anything calling for violence, anything encouraging violence towards a group of people or towards an individual, definitely deplatform. As far as like conspiracy theories and the like, I'm not quite sure what the best way to combat that is yet. But if it's a conspiracy theory that, again, is encouraging harm, then I don't see anything wrong with taking that off the platform, especially if that's not reflecting your brand. But I do think that there is some value in addressing certain conspiracy theories head on and debunking them early before they spin out of control. So.
Got it. All right. Also, people are asking about the policy specifically, so I'll just clarify it for everybody. Last week, Twitch rolled out a new misinformation policy that prohibits individuals or propaganda entities whose online presence is dedicated to disseminating misinformation with clear risks of real-world harm, but which leaves room for one-off statements containing misinformation. That's the general idea of it. Okay, just to give everybody an idea. I'm going to throw it over to Tiberius for the last intro.
I gotta thank you for this topic because it lets me fight with Scott, and every time that I actually get to fight with Scott, it's fun. I'm a little lukewarm on this particular topic. In the last particular 10 to 15 years is that I have seen the amount of scientific and just media illiteracy that is out there, and to a level I don't really trust the common person to really sift through a lot of this information. So on one side, I respect the initiative that Twitch is trying to put out there, where it's like, hey, look, we are a platform. We have some responsibility in the information that is sent out on our platform. I do respect that. However, on the other side of that, where the other mind kind of comes in, is that how adept or good is Twitch actually as an institution how adept is Twitch at actually sifting through information and what is correct and what is not, and where they can just be like, all right, you know what you're talking about, you don't know what you're talking about? I think that's a very relevant question. So I'm very lukewarm overall on this one. I like the initiative, but Twitch, are you up to the task on this one? I'll end with that.
Okay. I also want to say for everybody at home, let's say you want to access some of that restricted banned content, right? Let's say that you're in a country that's having all these news agencies banned due to rising tensions. Well, if you use Surfshark VPN with codes DBTV, then you get 3 months off free. And on top of that, you get 83% off 3 months past. I mean, oh, that's beautiful. Isn't that beautiful? 83% off. What an amazing discount for Surfshark VPN. And you can use it to be an American patriot who won't let any government tell them what they can and cannot access. Isn't that right, Sparky? Isn't that right, Fabian?
No, because NordVPN is the only VPN that is actually.
Okay, so now we're going to go into this topic. The floor is open. Surfshark VPN code DBTV, 83% off and 3 free months. Isn't that beautiful? You can access all the restricted content and protect yourself from government monitoring. Okay, who wants to start us off?
Look, the idea that you're banning, and I think Stardust mentioned inciting violence, that's illegal speech. It's not even though I'm an absolutist, I still understand, yes, you can't incite, and of course, that's not going to be allowed. The problem is, Anthony Fauci is guilty of misinformation. So anyone who has ever played Dr. Fauci saying anything, they could actually be held accountable under these type of ideas, because Anthony Fauci spread mass misinformation. And
That wasn't really misinformation. That was developing information, right? Like as more information came.
Like Fauci, but name one.
Huh?
Yeah, no, I'm
Name
still
one.
gonna say what I was said before.
Yeah. What did Fauci lie about?
He said masks work. And no,
so you think that masks don't work?
No.
Famously, why surgeons don't use them.
Wait. We gotta let Parker. Parker hasn't talked that much. I want to let Parker talk.
I can send you multiple different peer-reviewed studies that show that they are effective against stopping the spread of COVID-19.
They
would you be basing that claim off of?
They are good at limiting the spittle, but they are not small enough to stop viral transmission.
Okay, coronavirus spread.
Stop, Sprout. Parker.
This is why they have those bans.
How does it stop the spread?
Parker's talking. Okay.
COVID mainly spreads through attaching itself to water droplets, and the masks stop the spread of those water droplets to a specific degree, of course. So, I mean, can you explain to me how it's not? Because not all the particles are that size.
Sorry, what?
Not all the particles are that size. The main way that
you're right. No, it does
by
help
attaching
slow
itself to water droplets.
It does help slow the spread, but there is a lot of things that Anthony Fauci has come out that he even knew was misinformation when he disseminated it.
Oh, so you're walking that back now? Can we just acknowledge that you're walking that back now?
They were talking about things like lab leak and stuff.
If
you're going to talk about what misinformation is, you can look at the U.S. government, who is one of the biggest purveyors of misinformation. They tell the media what to say, and they just do it. It happens all the time.
But you're changing the topic. We were talking about Fauci, and you never gave an actual reason why. You're just using that point to bolster your own argument.
Parker, it's impossible for Fauci to not have lied on that, because he said that they were nothing more than a quote social placebo, and then later said that you needed masks, and it wasn't because the science.
Nothing more than when was the social placebo? When did he say that?
This was very early in the pandemic response.
Yeah. So what do you mean that the science didn't change? They had more evidence on the efficacy of masks in relation to coronavirus. Like, it took them time to get that data. So I mean, what are you talking about? At the beginning, also, like, people always bring this up all the time. At the beginning, they needed masks for medical professionals, and they didn't have these
to the American people
to allow for everyone to use it at that point. So when they were stating at the very beginning,
is that he lied for a good reason now.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I lied.
They didn't have the specific data. That's what I said.
Stop. Okay, everybody, shut up. We're not going to start jumping on each other, okay, and making it so one person asks a question, then you ask a question, and then ask a question. I'll just start muting. To be clear, I'm not gonna put up with that. Okay, so Fabian says something, then Parker tried to respond, then Aircraft Sparky got on him. So I want to have Parker respond before Aircraft Sparky jumps on him. I'm gonna start writing down names. Sprout, but then we're gonna move back to the actual question after this interaction is done.
So like, did you want to go? Like, I was just responding to your point because again, they never like lied. I was just stating that they that they have new data. So
No. See, he actually came out and said that he lied to the American people to ensure that the medical community were afforded all the masks. Okay, so if it's completely all fine and justified to lie to the people, for the government to lie to the people, so we can make sure that the elites get the masks, the people we want to get the masks to get them. Basically, you're supporting misinformation. Great.
again,
job.
no, that's not it at all. That's literally not it. Can you explain to me, like, show me where he said that specifically? Like,
Alright, so-
I can look it up to see that. That's all I'm asking for.
Yeah, he
So
can,
I'm gonna bring us back to this topic. You can DM wherever Fauci said. I'm gonna bring us kind of back to the topic. But Dylan, when he was advertising his VPN, proved my exact point, right? That banning someone off of a platform does nothing but raise the awareness for that person. So it basically raises their popularity, and people are more interested in what they're going to say. So if the best way to actually get done with misinformation is to fight it head to head with facts, and I believe the truth will win. And if your viewers hear you say these facts and be able to deconstruct their argument and be able to break it down piece by piece and prove it wrong, then the viewers would be more capable of being able to do that next time if they meet someone who's saying those same exact points. So I 100% think that this disinformation ban should not be happening, and that we should be more proactive as a community and fight these conspiracy theories, if you believe it's a conspiracy theory, head to head, and try and bring your own set of your facts. That way you can correctly break it down piece by piece and show how it's wrong.
How do you combat an epistemologically crippled conspiracy theory with more data?
It's actually really easy, right? Because it's
like
very fun. It's
literally impossible.
Oh yeah, we
No,
saw it
it's
happen
not,
right
because-
now on this panel with the mask. So I mean, it really helped.
Right. Well, no, I mean, it's very simple, right? Like when you make scientific claims and then you debate about those scientific claims with other scientific claims. Like this happens all of the time. This idea that like the
Except the
COVID
countervailing claims of COVID are not scientific and not appreciated or accepted by the medical community.
Stupid.
And they're
That's just fucking dumb.
and they're not accepted by the medical community. And then the conspiracy theorists look at that as,
is that how science works? Acceptance by the medical community?
People is specifically that, yes. That
Oh,
the consensus,
okay. Well, then you also
consensus in academia is literally
science or anything. What do you get?
No, you.
Right. Well, so again, like there are tons of things that have been considered conspiracy theories that the science
Good night, Cypress.
censored or pushed off of platforms were saying that then become knowledge. The blood clots in J&J was a thing. There was plenty of scientists and researchers and medical doctors saying, hey, when it comes to AstraZeneca and when it comes to the Pfizer vaccine and Moderna, we're seeing in young men higher rates of issues when it comes to pericarditis and myocarditis. That was a conspiracy theory and wrong. But then we found out that no, in younger men, you're more likely to get myocarditis and pericarditis from the vaccine.
What that was over-reporting. That was a misreading of a stat and over-reporting of it. So we're different.
No, it's not.
That's more misinformation.
No, it's not. That's not more misinformation.
People broadly.
Like, if you need,
I don't want to relitigate. I want to
Stop,
relitigate every little. Are we going to have to reparse every?
Okay. So, you're both yelling over each other. I can't hear anything. No one can hear anything. I don't want to have to do that again. Okay? So, who's asking who a question? I don't even know who's asking who a question anymore.
Well, so there's some disinformation that's happened in this panel, so I want to make sure Dylan doesn't get banned, right? You are more likely to get myocarditis as a young man from COVID than you are from the vaccine.
Exactly.
No,
True.
that is not true.
It
is.
According to what?
Absolutely true.
According to what?
This is the disinformation in debunking
No, would you prefer,
in action, guys.
Would you prefer?
He's so convinced. He's so convinced by the data.
You guys are doing it again.
Would you prefer that I refer you to Vinay Prasad? That is someone that is looking at these studies. Since you don't trust my ability to read the study, maybe an epidemiologist is someone that you should listen to when they make that claim, right?
Can you give me a name? Okay. What was the name?
Vinay Prasad.
I can't spell it. Can you spell it for me?
Okay.
It's just like it sounds, actually.
Okay. Stop. Everybody stop. Okay. So, I did not want this to just become a debate on COVID, and that's what it's becoming very quickly. Okay.
Mhm.
And so what we're gonna do now is no more debating COVID. Isn't that crazy? You can't
I'm
debate
all for it.
any of the specifics of COVID. You just have to debate misinformation on how it from something and how it could affect platform and whether it should be removed. Okay. That is what we're gonna be debating moving forward. If someone starts debating the specifics of COVID again, I'm just gonna mute you for 5 minutes. Okay. And you're gonna have to sit there. And I might even like full screen you so everybody in Twitch chat can see you as you just sit there in silence. Okay. So got it? Does everybody understand?
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. So debate misinformation, not the specifics.
All right, so can someone tell me how facing an argument with facts is not going to be more effective than banning someone off to where they can just go somewhere else, and even more people are going to follow them somewhere else because they've been banned off that platform that got the national attention, and now everyone wants to hear what they're saying because they've been banned. Can someone explain to me why facts works less than banning?
Because people aren't able to articulate what the facts are, and people who are confident can go out there and muddy the waters in a way that seems specious, right? That seems clever or smart on its face, but is not backed by any medical science, not backed by anything. But the way it's delivered and the confidence of the speaker just foments doubt, which adds to the reduces the net utility in the world by making the epidemiologist's job harder, especially in the context.
But who is the arbiter of
that
truth?
sounds-
That's really the question.
Usually the medical society and like literally peer-reviewed science, the mass. So it's a fluid,
Okay.
it's a dynamic thing, and it changes
Hold on.
all the time. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Is science settled on a consensus basis, or is it actual individuals standing up and challenging the established quo that actually causes advances in science?
It's a balance.
It's Dr. Fauci. He said, I am the science.
It's a balance.
The science!
It's only Fauci, nobody else.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
You know, this panel is really changing my views on this, like, in real time. It's unbelievable.
Can I address what Sprout said?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So
It's legal.
okay,
Not
fair
allowed.
enough.
Okay.
Damn it.
Continue. No, you can
Appreciate
go.
it. Yeah. So why data? Why can that actually be a problem? Why we're just throwing people the data book? As an example, something that I found as a data argument here on Twitch that has been really hot is that intuitive deduction sometimes will trump data for a lot of people. Example is public housing. There is a claim by data that public housing is actually cheaper for a city to do than having all of these other different auxiliary programs because of the fact that you're not throwing people in jail, for loitering, things like that. I can get into the particulars of that. But if I go up to people and I say, public housing is actually cheaper, intuitively, people are going to tell you, no, you're wrong, get screwed. And there's no conversation there. You have to actually sell it. And data sometimes works, but sometimes it doesn't. It is part of presentation and salesmanship in telling people how that data works and how it's aligned.
Okay, so at a Twitch platform such like this, there's 1.9 thousand people watching Dylan Burns right now. I'm not counting
Amen.
the rest of. I'm not counting the rest of everybody who has viewers. I'm not counting the rest of them. But just Dylan Burns alone, there's 1.9 thousand people watching. Flex as much as you want. So with that being said, when me and you are having a discussion here, if one of us brings up data and the other one just says no and doesn't listen, the audience is probably going to be more influenced by the data than the person that said fuck off. It's not hard. We're talking about a platform. We're not talking about going on the street and talking to random people. We're talking about a platform such as Twitch to where there's one person talking to another and it's streamed live for other viewers.
So, like, I get where you're going with this, and number one, I may be a lot more doomer on this one than you are, and that's fine. That's just a difference in opinion. But on the other side of that is that people have recency bias and basically just bias in general, to where if I said, hey, this particular party has done really well with the economy, you will have people openly say, regardless of whatever the fucking numbers are, that they did worse. Like, we have seen, particularly in the last 10 years, how strong people's personal biases can get, where you can slap them with data all damn day, and actually they will retrench and go further from what the data says if it is not conveyed to them in a constructive way.
There's always those
Yeah.
people, yes. But what we're talking about is misinformation, and when they're talking about misinformation, they're talking mostly about the viewers. So there's always going to be those people. There's always going to be those viewers that want to go on the hard part of no, I'm just going to deny everything. We're talking mainly central people that aren't dedicated to one side or the other, because you're not going to influence a person's dedicated to one side or dedicated to the other side. What you're trying to influence is the middle group, and that middle group, I believe, is getting more influenced by facts than the person who says fuck off or tries to build themselves a deeper trench when they're faced with the facts.
Okay, yeah.
Do you think like school history teachers should like if they ever teach kids about the Holocaust, should they also spend an equal amount of time teaching them about Holocaust denial? So they can hear both
No.
sprouts. Do you think
Why
why
would-
shouldn't
that's
why not get both perspectives?
So
Completely
there's
incomparable.
there's
How many
a
times are you
difference
going to
between
bring up?
How is
Wait,
it
wait, stop.
comparable?
Okay, wait, stop. That was a question to Sprout, and Sprout was trying to respond. Fabian, I'll let you to respond to you, and Stardust, I still got you. No worries.
There's a huge difference between education and a platform. And I'm actually like flabbergasted that education got brought up in this. There's a huge difference in education and a platform. A platform is something like this, where it's not education, right? I'm not saying that down and teaching people. I'm not paid to teach people. I'm not licensed to teach people, right? But what I am is I'm speaking my mind, and people are listening to me speak my mind. All right, and that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about teachers. We're not talking about the education system. I'd be more than welcome to talk about the next topic if Dylan wants to change the topic. But what we are talking about is misinformation on Twitch. I don't think there's very many people on Twitch that claim to be licensed teachers and only teach on Twitch.
No, I was just so I can like unflabbergast you. Like I'm maybe kind of like devil's advocating a little bit, but I want to like why don't we though? That's what I want to know. Is like why don't they do it in education?
So the question is, Loner. So look, education aside, it's a totally different subject.
No,
Here
I
on
want to know why
Twitch-
they don't do it in education. It should be a simple question, right? It should be a simple
They
question.
don't do it in education because it's not factual.
That's it. Okay. So, like, but I thought you said like we should. If you're going to say that you want to like ban like opposing narratives, then doesn't that make
No,
it more popular?
I don't want to
you
ban
said,
it. I
or
don't
more
want to ban
endearing?
anybody.
Yeah.
Okay, so earlier
But
you
you want to
said
ban it
that
from like education, though, right? You think if a teacher
Education
like
is about
started giving
facts.
equal
Education is
weight-
about facts. It's not a platform. I'm not taking someone's speech away because they are given a book and have to teach from that book. I'm not taking someone's speech away because of that. When I'm
people-
taking someone's speech away is where I take someone off a platform and say you can't speak on this platform anymore because I don't agree with what you're saying.
The
Okay,
thing is,
one moment,
people
guys.
speak
So
on-
before you guys respond, I have to go walk away for a minute. Please, everybody, follow the rules. I will be back. Chat will tell me if you broke the rules. Okay.
People
all talk
speak
over
on
each other.
these
Real quick,
issues
real quick.
as if they're teachers, like as if they're reporting on the facts all the time. People, that's
Real quick.
just what people. That's like the epitome of like a Twitch politics streamer is. They're speaking on stuff like they're the facts. So
Real quick.
Also,
real
not to
quick.
mention that a lot
real
of people
quick.
actually cling on to-
No. Real quick. While he's gone.
it's never real
right?
quick, but okay.
Uh-oh.
No, okay. NordVPN is the only VPN that has ever been challenged by the FBI and has
Yeah.
won court proceedings by the FBI demanding.
Oh, he got muted.
Nice.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Fabio Library, shut up.
Hey, Sprout. Earlier on, you were saying specifically that you should be able to combat misinformation or combat narratives with facts, and yet I don't want to make a semantic argument here. I'm not a fucking gotcha, Andy. But you said basically that those aren't counterfactuals or whatever. So now, which is it? Is it that you aren't able to speak eloquently on that thing, or that are you just proposing a counter narrative? Is that utility in it? Because how is it facts if it's not an opinion?
Are you
know,
bringing up
I had a
education? Are you bringing up education again?
Basically, yes. In your answer to that, you said it's misinformation, but I said, what's going to differentiate that between the counter narratives that you're providing on a platform like Twitch for entertainment purposes? So, for entertainment purposes or otherwise, you're still forwarding, signal boosting possible misinformation.
Okay, so what I'm still saying is that your viewers, if you trust your viewers, I guess, should be able to disseminate the difference between facts and non-factual information, or someone saying "fuck off," I'm not going to listen, digging themselves a bigger trench. I'm not going to sit here and debate education because that's not the topic. If you like to talk about education some other time, feel free to hit me up in Discord, and we'll have a wonderful conversation about education. But that's not the topic right now. We're talking about people getting banned off of Twitch for
Okay,
misinformation.
so Sprout, I asked you about about education because you said the point in education being different is that teachers are in an authoritative position over like facts. They've got an authority over kids and like because it's about facts, right? So what happens when we live in a world where you can probably imagine that a lot of people actually trust social media creators and people on platforms more than they trust institutions like education, or more than they trust mainstream media, or more than they trust official narratives or studies, right? So what happens then? Like, what happens when like social media creators have more authority than educators? Shouldn't they be held to should they still be held to a lower standard?
I think that they shouldn't be banned. Like I said, I think that you're trying to convince the middle ground. I think that there's a certain part of the audience that's not going to be changed their mind. I think there's another certain part of the audience that's not going to change their mind. It's all about the middle ground. It's all about the middle ground in between the two, right? It's all about that middle ground. Even in elections, it's all about that middle ground. How much of that middle ground will vote for this person, and how much of that middle ground will vote for that person. Now, when you're talking about that, most of that middle ground will understand facts and will be able to look at things logically. People who are not going to accept facts and are just dead set in what they believe, talking to them and showing the facts will do absolutely nothing. Point. I 100% agree. But that middle ground is going to move as you show facts, as you break down the argument, as you show this is wrong, and break it down and show how it's wrong that way. That is how that middle ground is going to move. Not because you ban someone, because when you ban someone, that middle ground is going to decide, oh, I'm going to go to this new platform and watch what they're saying there where they're not banned, because I want to hear what they have to say, because obviously it was something to get banned for. So I want to hear what they have to say instead of moving the middle ground with facts.
So if you wanted to get bigger, you would get banned, wouldn't you? If getting banned draws more attention to you, then
well, it depends on who
should people
you
try
are.
to get banned? Like, if they want a bigger following?
It depends. If you're a nobody and you get like low viewership, you're probably not going to get very much attention from getting banned. No one's going to realize you were banned very little. But if you're a somebody, or you're trying to you have high viewership or stuff like that, then you're probably going to get viewers that come from where you used to be, and you're probably going to get more viewers than you used to get.
Like Milo Yiannopoulos or Stefan Molyneux, whose entire careers tanked.
Milo Yiannopoulos got actually a huge. Milo Yiannopoulos actually got a huge viewership boost after he got banned. It was just following that he wasn't able to keep those viewers.
Yeah, so the ban is what hurt. The ban is what hurt his audience, right?
No, the ban is not what hurt his audience. He actually got a boost after he got banned. He was not able to maintain those viewers.
Because
I'm going to tell you right now.
He could maintain viewers,
I'm going to tell you right now that me as Alex Jones, after being banned off of YouTube, 11 million strong individuals on Infowars.com that are ready to have 1776 commence again.
That's actually
Oh my god, that's great. Hey, Sprout, can I wrap up that conversation I was having with you? Because like I don't disagree with you on the middle ground part. Like the real danger here that I consistently see, and this has gotten really bad in the last 20 years, is the effectiveness of rhetorician, where you don't have people talk or give like a fuck off as a quip, but moreover, it is something that appeals to either a moral sense or like a skewed objective sense against the data. As an example, 100 years ago, we had the evolution conversation. That was literally the Scopes trial and all that. The term "I'll be a monkey's uncle" literally comes from that. It was a quip. It was like, oh yeah, evolution can't be real because that makes me a monkey's uncle. You know, it's intuitive, it's quippy, and that is the primary tool of misinformation. Not actually changing the data, not misrepresentation the data, but to openly quip it to be invalid.
Yeah, there is to speak on a lot of things. You asked by why education is important, and you said they should be able to parse the facts. There is about 10%, 8 to like a 13% of an audience that's going to be doxastically open, meaning that they can have their minds changed by that. The problem is what you're positioning there is like that there's two equal academic or smart powers, which is the whole of a scientific medical consensus versus some fucking Twitch Andy. Those two things are not equal, number one. Number two, there is a little bit of a Streisand effect wherein that if somebody gets banned off a platform, it draws attention for them if they're of a big enough size to be noticed and is noteworthy in the media. That will draw people there. Number three, there's utility in being wrong often, early and often, about those things. The conspiracy entrepreneurs can make a whole lane for themselves. I think it's in Twitch's best interest to get rid of the conspiracy entrepreneurs who are literally trafficking misinformation to onboard people who are disaffected by the society as a result of longitudinal failures of the system and the education system. So it does ultimately go back to academia. However, a stopgap measure to prevent the worst actors who are conspiracy entrepreneurs from doing this is just Twitch clipping 100 or so people. I think that's a pretty surgical strike on misinfo.
I think there's two things that we're not talking about here that are extremely important and relevant to this conversation. Number one, we keep shifting this conversation as if there is a presumption that the powers that be, the medical community, the government, the state, the large corporate powers are kind of like automatically going to be in the right here because they control the narrative. When we just know from history over and over and over again that there are very unpopular opinions that they do not appreciate, right? I mean, and so that's the first point. And the second point, when we're talking about deplatforming and its success, the amount of increased censorship online towards conservatives or towards anti-state activists and things of that nature that has grown has pushed a market of other types of platforms, right? And so, sure, we can talk about Milo Yiannopoulos when YouTube had a monopoly, which the left, hates monopolies unless, of course, the monopoly supports their political opinions. Then all of a sudden, monopolies are okay. But they're losing that strength of that monopoly, right? Viva Frey was doing Canadian trucker stuff with 50,000 viewers, and so the success of deplatforming isn't going to be a long-term success as we get more and more authoritarian with the types of individuals that we kick off of these platforms and push them to other platforms. And I think the greatest danger of that is that instead of being able to have conversations, what you're doing is creating echo chambers, right? Twitter gets more and more restrictive, and now we have to have a conservative version of Twitter and Twitter. YouTube gets more and more censorious, and now we have to have a conservative version of YouTube called Rumble or Odyssey instead. And as we do this, we're going to cause a lot more fucking problems than we solve than if we just stood by our liberal ideas of freedom of speech.
I'll jump in on that one. So, Scott, when it comes to this, I absolutely appreciate where
Fabio Library talks so much, he makes me lose track of the I just start tuning out. I just start zoning out.
It's not about like the individual making up their mind as much as it is more leadership and experts within their field are usually kind of coming to their own conclusions, and they kind of peddle it to the people at large. This was the job of Carl Sagan. This is the job of Stephen Hawking, right? Neil deGrasse Tyson's kind of taken that up as well, where it's like, hey, this is what's going on in science right now. This is what we're doing in astrophysics. They do the work, and then they actually kind of sell it to people. It's like, hey, this is what's going on. So here's the problem. If our institutions are even remotely questionable, whether it is that they are politically motivated, whether it is that they have kind of lost their, if you will, liberal doctrine, or if they are actively becoming activists in their own right, which clouds their judgment, is that a problem? Is that a concern where we might need to have, if you will, like an institutional misinformation pushback where one institution checks another?
Well, see, the problem here is that when you talk about science, right, one of in the community and things like that, is that anybody that's been in like anybody with a bachelor's degree, right, has had some education on Thomas Kuhn and the idea of paradigm shifts, right? A medical community, a scientific community has a narrative, an idea. Most people agree to this, right? And there's one or two scientists that are skeptics that challenge this idea. And sometimes they turn out to be right. And the community kind of starts to shift slowly. And then there's a giant paradigm shift.
When those paradigm shifts happen, they happen in academia and not from a Twitch Andy. You're speaking to you can specifically about a Twitch. You're talking about a Twitch Andy parroting someone else who's also not using the academic modalities to do that paradigm shift that you're referring to, that were traditionally done through academia.
No, you're just saying Twitch Andy and then just having an appeal to authority. When what I'm talking about is that in a new age of the internet,
an appeal to authority.
Now, what he means is like hack epidemiologists to compare like COVID measures to Hitler's Third Reich. That's what you were talking about. With the myocarditis claim.
Yeah, right. Hack epidemiologists. Got it. I'm not going to go into that because we're not supposed to talk about COVID, and I've already been silenced multiple times on this specific debate topic. But no,
I
what I'm
will censor you. Yes.
Yeah, I got it. What I'm talking about is that there is cultural shifts in things as well, right? We're not just talking about science specifically. It seems like maybe we're stuck a little bit on the COVID misinformation because we got heated about it, right? And we're talking and dancing around it a little bit. But we're talking about things in terms of elections is a big part of this. One of the major bullet points is civic misinformation and undermining of the political process, right? So we're talking about anti-state rhetoric or anarchist rhetoric or the freedom convoy, or we're talking about COVID, or we're talking about other forms of what might be deemed harmful misinformation, right? And opinions can be really unpopular. And there can be educators or just talking heads and people that talk, hey guys, have you heard about this? Things can spread in a cultural zeitgeist, right? And ideas can spread that way till they get to more people. This paradigm shift isn't always going to be lock and step and stay in academia. That's just not the world that we live in anymore, I don't think.
Especially
Okay,
when
so you went back to academia at the end there. Okay, I agree.
I said they're not going to stay there.
Okay.
Yeah, you've got educators actually doing things like content creation. And look, when you're talking about the difference between like Twitch and maybe a classroom, in a classroom environment, you actually have to follow a specific curriculum because your license to do that, your professional license is actually being jeopardized if you go against what the curriculum teaches.
But in that classroom, your audience is 30 people, not like thousands.
I've seen audiences as big as 500. I go to college.
In a classroom,
learn classrooms
in
are
a
bigger.
Classroom, okay, sure. In a college, maybe 500 people, but we've got Twitch content creators with 10K viewers, 50K viewers who are saying the most stupid shit I've ever heard in my life.
Yes, and they should be allowed to say that. And look,
but they're speaking on it like they're authorities.
Follows them, that's more about them.
Okay, wait. There's 3 people talking at once. I'll have Stardust respond to that, and then we'll go to Fabian, okay?
It'll be 3 seconds.
What am I responding to?
I'll count.
Okay, Stardust. If you're smart enough to tell that they're wrong, the average person definitely can.
Okay, Stardust.
Oof.
No, they can't. Sorry. They can't. The answer is no. What am I responding to from Mashcraft over here?
Just talk about you, Aircraft Sparky.
Mashcraft, that's fucking good.
Yeah, I kind of tune out every time she speaks.
It's okay. I tune out every time Fabio Library speaks too. Weaponized boredom over here. So, yeah. Okay, I'm done. I mean, I guess there's nothing for me to respond to here.
There's a broad differentiation between the type of clearly definable medical misinformation that's going out for people who are often selling other prescriptive solutions, i.e. supplements, other medicine practices, other stuff. There's an entrepreneurial nature to a lot of the disinformation fomented by medical conspiracists, okay? But then you raise a different point, which is the political stuff. And I think that's more of a gray area, is when does political speech get violent? When does having like an election narrative, when does that cross the threshold into fomenting violence or stuff like that? That's a more interesting niche issue, but I don't think that's the type of thing that's being forwarded. I think specifically QAnon and the articles I read about this Twitch ban, QAnon is referenced a lot in the type of epistemologically crippled conspiracy theory that people are going, where they're weaponizing people's sort of nonpartisan populist takes that are sort of reactionary to a part of a malaise they feel at the system, and so, which leads them to glom onto the most most harebrained shit about Hillary Clinton being a fucking secret satanic pedo and pedophile, fucking like human trafficking, other like really fringe weirdo shit.
Clearly, you haven't read the Finders documents by the FBI.
True.
Look, all I know is during the election, you had people banned off of social media platforms for referring to the Hunter Biden laptop story, which later came out to be true. Like I said, what is misinformation today, 2 to 3 months down the road, may be the freaking truth. And if you don't allow it to actually get out there, then you will actually have violent reactions to it. Because when you see the state media, when you see social media and everything, and people continuously are being duped by the misinformation put out by the establishment, people will eventually get fed up and then they will enact on that anger.
It's actually
the Hunter Biden thing specifically. What they were getting banned for was posting his dick pics, like posting crack pipes and dick pics and weirdo shit on Twitter. It wasn't necessarily the narrative about. I would say that there was a convenient dismissal of that at the time because it looked like it was going to be bad for the Biden campaign, and I agree. The way they handled that was it looked like they were mitigating. They were working. A lot of the social media networks seemed to be working as a PR branch of the Biden administration over the upcoming Biden administration. Yeah. I'll agree with that, but specifically, it looked like they were targeting people who were like sharing crack pipes and dick pics and like scattling Skittles on his dick and stuff.
So Mythic, are you not aware that the New York Post, the New York Post was it wasn't deleted and they weren't banned, but their post was not able to be shared, not able to be liked, not able to be commented on, which severely took it down in how many people saw it and timelines and stuff like that. So it's more like a shadow ban of that post, but the post was literally just saying that Hunter Biden's laptop had this on it, and it's confirmed to be Hunter Biden's laptop. Now, this post was mid-election. This article was mid-election, and a social media company decided, no, people don't need to hear about that. They don't need to hear about that, so we're just going to make sure it doesn't get out.
And they did ban the New York Post for like 24 hours on Twitter. What, like the second or third oldest periodical in America that's still going on today. That is huge. And that is just Twitter doing that. YouTube actually was banning people for talking about the story. I don't know. I don't think Twitch did, but I wasn't really doing much with Twitch that time.
I'm really glad that you brought up the Hunter Biden situation, right? Because Global Disinformation Index, the supposedly non-biased source that they're going to be using to help determine what is and isn't harmful misinformation, Claire Medford, the co-founder of the Global Disinformation Index, in an article where she was being interviewed with NPR, she was asked about the Hunter Biden censorship, and she pivoted away from the question, not talking about the Hunter Biden laptop, and instead talked about how Breitbart and Epic Times should be considered, quote, hostile narratives against the election, and that almost all information about the January 6th incident and elections came from Russia Today and Sputnik, and was claiming that their organization could prove that all of the overwhelming majority, of all of the quote unquote misinformation about the election was coming from Russian propaganda, which we know is just made up bullshit and cope, and specifically told readers that if they wanted to get good information and they didn't want to be reading fake news, that they needed to read, quote, NPR, New York Times, Reuters, USA Today, Wall Street Journal, and Washington Post, right? This group is a fucking statist, neoliberal fucking group that wants you to make sure that you shut up and you get all of your information from the trusted news that the state is very happy and hunky-dory with. This is not a non-biased group that is going to be determining what is and isn't harmful misinformation on Twitch.
They're also not the sole arbiter of what is misinformation on Twitch. They're working with a lot of partners, and true, there could be.
They're the only named one.
That is true. I don't even think they were named directly by Twitch. They were named in ancillary articles as maybe.
They're named in with an asterisk in the Twitch policy, saying that we're working. Yes.
Okay.
Specifically, they talked about the Civic misinformation. There was an asterisk saying we're not doing this ourselves. We're working with groups, and then they named this group.
Okay, yeah, and so I think specifically, you're correct that looking into the motivations of the people who are the arbiters of the fact that is important. But I think broadly speaking, it doesn't affect the broader truth that a lot of people are unable to discern fact from fiction. They don't, because the education system is as such in this country where they do not have the context and they do not have the wherewithal or deductive reasoning or critical thinking skills to get from where they need to be to where the truth is from what their opinion is now by means of Twitch. So
I actually agree with all of that.
So as the problem is a utilitarian thing, exactly. Well, I think you just ban the worst actors. This is not has anyone in
who chooses who the worst actors are? Who chooses what's wrong and right?
I would.
And I start looking into the motivations, and I can prove that they're super biased.
I would be very curious to see who those 100 were as well. But I think they're QAnon people. Do you think that QAnon is a balanced, reasonable thing to go on about? Do you think that
So I think
JFK Jr. is
QAnon
going to
is
come
a-
back?
is a-
Do you
so I
think
think-
JFK Jr. is going to come back from the dead? Do you think if a Twitch person was
Well,
talking
don't
about
ask me a question and then.
Okay.
Well, no, like, look, I don't think that QAnon people are the most reasonable fucking people out there, right? But the problem here is who gets to choose what is dangerous and what's not dangerous. When you look into the group, the only group that they mention by name, they have tons and tons of articles talking about how we have to stop QAnon. They have an article talking about how we need to ban any anti-CRT discussions because it creates a pipeline to anti-LGBTQ content, right? So now we can't talk about fucking why CRT is bad. We can't talk against Marxism. They talk specifically about far right. This group also has articles that are anti-cryptocurrency because cryptocurrency is allowing the far right to be able to fund themselves and misinformation groups. It's so clearly and patently and obviously a fucked organization that is going to be choosing what is and isn't misinformation, that's going to be supporting mainstream left-wing narratives. And that's why you're not going to see Has banned for misinformation. You're not going to see Tankies banned for misinformation. You're going to see right-wingers banned for misinformation.
Well, you're talking about the mainstream media like monolith or the American government, but Has is literally speaking out against both of those things like every day. Like, so I don't know, like his claims are completely in contradiction. That's why these things are not a monolith. It's the same with social media platforms. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen the stats for Facebook and how much like partisan right there is compared to partisan left. It completely, the right dwarfs the left in Facebook presence. When it comes to Twitter shadow banning, there's the only evidence you're ever going to give me for Twitter shadow banning favoring conservatives is conjecture. Like Twitter said it was a technical glitch, and one of the people who actually got banned.
Fucking
Wait.
Stop. Let him
Which you have. Do you even know which incident I'm talking about? I didn't think so.
No, because it's a
So-
go-to for Twitter.
And yeah, and your go-to is conjecture with no evidence. Okay, that's fine.
Are you talking about
I
New
mean,
York Post?
One of the people who got banned, like in one of Twitter's
answer?
shadow bans, were Democrat politicians. So,
Are you going to answer the question or not?
what question?
Was it New York Post?
What about New York Post?
What you were referring to?
No, this was
The technical
2018.
glitch. The technical
I was talking about
glitch is what
2018.
I'm talking about.
How about 2018?
Which
what
one?
about
No,
2018?
you have to. Like the problem is that there's been dozens and dozens of supposed technical glitches that
You can't
censored
just
or
name
shadow
it.
banned conservatives. You
You
have to
can't just name a year.
because we're talking
can't
about
just name a year.
dozens of cases.
So
Again,
what specific case are you referring to?
I'm just wanting to see like something besides like just like conjecture when it
So
comes to.
wait, you
so
don't
the
even
bullet point. You're
wait, you
pivoting
don't
and
even know
bullshitting.
what post. You don't even know what post you're referring to.
New York
What
Post.
post are you referring to?
Guys, he
Hang on.
downloaded from his NPC drive the talking point, right? It's a technical glitch, and now that we're challenging him, he doesn't know which.
You just quoted an NPC thing about myocarditis. You've been like, what are you talking about?
No,
Why
no,
is the
seriously.
NPC talking about it?
Respond to me. Respond to
What
me.
happened? What happened to that 5 minute?
What
I
tweet
haven't-
are you referring to?
I'm not talking about. Okay, I'm talking about an incident in 2018. Hang on.
That's a
I'll
year.
send it to you in
On
the chat.
2018, what?
Yeah.
Wait, let's
Yeah.
let
How-
him finish. Let's let him finish. He'll bring it
It was
up.
about Twitter shadow banning prominent Republicans. It was like a claim that was going out. It was a tweet referring to the article in. Hang on.
Right. Well, once you get your story straight, like let's continue elsewhere.
Look, censorship when it comes to the idea of misinformation. If you're coming to Twitch as your only mode of information, that's a you problem. You're wrong. Obi-Wan Kenobi said, "Strike me down and I'll become more powerful than you could possibly imagine." And look, we see this happen with individuals like Alex Jones, for Christ's sakes. Look, his personal website blew up because he was censored because he said a lot of dumb things. But the Alex Jones was right jar gets fuller and fuller at every couple of months. And then like recently you see like Salty Cracker has been banned off of YouTube. Now Rumble is exploding because of it. Look, there is such thing as the Streisand effect. I don't care what information a creator is putting out. It is not the creator's responsibility for what the following, for what the chat does and everything. I think it's ridiculous. And when you talk about censoring information, you're basically doing the same thing that 1939 German people were doing. I mean, for Christ's sakes, you're
Oh
doing the exact
no!
same thing.
Are you
And
are
yes,
you
America has
seriously bringing up?
engaged in that kind of
Really?
stuff too, yes.
Okay. Again, ending statements. But I'll throw it over to Stardust next since she had such a visceral reaction.
Dude, why do we have to bring up fucking...
I can fill in while you're...
Yeah, why don't you go?
So, yeah, the incident I was referring to was when a bunch of Republican politicians claimed that they were collectively shadow banned on Twitter in July of 2018, to which Twitter responded and showed evidence that some of the people who got banned in that 600,000 account purge were Democrats. That's all I was saying.
What I just don't understand is whenever we're talking about disinformation, or we're talking about masking, or we're talking about vaccines, or we're talking about COVID, somebody always has to bring up Nazi Germany. Why? Why? We don't need to bring up Hitler for everything, guys. It's not necessary. Really? Really? You know what Nazis did? They spread disinfo. You know what commies did? They also spread disinfo. Everybody spread disinfo. Okay? Shut up! And then as far as the technical glitches, what do you think is part of running a tech company? There are going to be technical glitches, guys. And then I guess the last thing I would say is that, when we're trying to determine what type of disinfo harms people, and what to get rid of, there are going to be people who get caught up in it, who are innocent, who get banned off of a platform for the wrong reasons. But that's like very similar to how a lot of things work. We have to find a line to draw somewhere, right? Yeah, I don't know what to say. I'm not going to be lectured, though, by somebody who has the brain of a cold mashed potatoes on what the average person can handle and what the average person can determine is disinformation. It's not happening. Your cold mashed potatoes over here is trying to tell me that it's Hitler and it's Nazi Germany. Okay, I'm done.